Oh my goodness. Don't you remember when you went to school for the first time? You went to kindergarten. In kindergarten, the idea of moving forward was born, so you could reach the first grade. And then you moved on to second grade, third grade. You reached high school, and this was a significant transition in your life. You had to move forward, get good grades, and finally be good enough to go to college. Once you reached college, you were still going step by step until the big moment when you were ready to step out into the world. And then, when you entered this famous world, the struggle to find a profession or do business began. It seems like there's a ladder in front of you, something you continuously climb. And then, suddenly, when you're around 45 years old, in the middle of life, one day you wake up and say, I've arrived. And by Jove, I feel more or less as I've always felt. In fact, I think I feel a bit betrayed because, you see, you've been deceived. You've always lived for something that isn't present, and while, as I said, it's immensely useful for us to look forward in this way and plan, it should also be noted that it serves no purpose to plan a future that, when you arrive there and it becomes the present, you won't be present. You'll be living in another future that hasn't arrived yet, and this way, you can never truly enjoy and reap the fruits of your actions. You can't live at all if you can't live fully now. And since living in the present isn't satisfying because we never truly live in it, we become increasingly greedy to move forward and chase the future. We develop our technology with a fantastic ability in which we can satisfy more and more of our desires for the future almost immediately. We live in a world made of impulses. But have you ever stopped to think about what the world would be like if we could fulfill every desire the moment we wanted it? Suppose, for example, that when you go to bed at night, you can always dream whatever you want to dream. What would happen after a while? Naturally, I suppose that at first you would dream of fantastic pleasures, wonderful adventures, the realization of all the things you've always desired. But with the passage of time, don't you think you would be a bit surprised to have less control over what's happening? And after experiencing this for a few months or years, you might even desire dreams in which you suffer because there is no true pleasure without delay. Doesn't it happen to all of us that on a hot day we think, I really crave ice cream? Have you ever tried the experiment of postponing pleasure, delaying the desire for that ice cream so much that when you finally eat it, it will be delicious? Similarly, impatience with time, always desiring the future, is frustrating. Maya generally means illusion, or, better yet, illusions caused by accepting certain beliefs, of which perspective was an example. When we are unaware that we take some things for granted, like the separation of things from each other, when we don't realize that it's a matter of convention, we tend to be deceived. Now, I think one of the conventions that we tend to be deceived by more than anything else is time. For all human beings, time is a matter of extraordinary importance, and perhaps this is one of the main ways in which we differ from animals, because man has been defined as an animal bound to time, that is, a creature vividly aware that his life moves, so to speak, along a line. It starts from the past, passes through the present, and arrives in the future. Animals, on the surface, live from moment to moment. They don't seem to have very strong memories, while humans have a strong memory and can keep the past in mind, while projecting it into visions of the future based on what has happened in the past. Therefore, although this ability gives humans the most extraordinary capacity to program their lives to prepare for future eventualities, at the same time, there is a very high price that they pay for this, especially if they take this capacity too seriously. They will come to realize that the true reality in which they live is the present moment, and now let's give an example. The animal probably doesn't worry much about future diseases, death, or hunger and things like that. If an animal sees another animal dead on the ground, I don't think it thinks to itself, well, one day it will happen to me too. No, it just sees another dead animal, sniffs it, sees if it's good to eat, and then goes away. But for human beings, it's entirely different because we actually spend most of our time and a significant part of our emotional energy living in a time that isn't here, living in an elsewhere that isn't concretely real. So much so that even if we can feel quite comfortable and happy in our current circumstances, If there's no guarantee, if we don't have a promise of a good time coming tomorrow or tomorrow or tomorrow, we're instantly unhappy, even in the middle of a moment of pleasure and well-being. In this way, we develop a kind of chronic anxiety about time. We want to be more and more certain. Because of our sensitivity to the sensation of time, we want to be more and more certain that our future is assured. And that's why the future becomes more important for most human beings than the present. And in this sense, we are hooked, captured by a Maya, because it serves us very little to be able to control and design the future if we are not capable at the same time of living entirely in the present. And so, when in civil societies we spend so much of our time living for the future, we become very much like those famous donkeys, that have a carrot fixed on a stick tied to their necks right here behind, and they chase it, but they can never reach it. And it works exactly the same way with us. But when you come to realize that the present is the only place you live, and that the past and the future are nothing but useful illusions. Useful, yes, but useful only if you can live in the present. Then, as I said, you can settle for full participation in the momentary reality of life as it proceeds, just like music. Buddha was one of the wisest among the sons of Asia. His real name was Gautama, but he was called Buddha because Buddha means the awakened one, the man who has awakened. But in what sense was he awake? He was awake in the sense that he was fully present, and that's what we say about a person who loves. There is no all, there is no all. But our whole culture, our whole civilization, to the extent that it is involved in time and lives only for a future, is crazy. There is no all, we are not awake, we are not fully alive. And consequently, we are so hungry and so greedy because everything seems tasteless. We live for an abstraction that has not yet happened, and we don't know what it truly is.